All right, it is indeed my pleasure to wrap up our morning session on the main stage with some incredible executive leaders here in our great state of New Jersey. This is our C-suite panel, the C-suite skills that matter most today. In a world where leadership demands agility, clarity, and bold vision, this empowering panel brings together expert insights and practical strategies to help you rise with confidence and connect with a powerful community of trailblazing women. Please join me in welcoming Paula Ferrara, Kieran Honda Guadioso, Aisha Johnson, Catherine Frugier Stargell, and Veronica Antolano Vivas. Lady, the floor is all yours, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. We're so excited to be here this afternoon. We realize we stand in between you and lunch, but trust, you are going to get so many tidbits that will help you, whether you're in the C-suite now or moving your way up there. Now, we think we're missing one person, don't we? When Lori comes from the restroom, I see her running. Take your time. Had I known we were going to be sitting down, I would have worn heels. Oh, you have on flats, good. Okay, great. We're going to get right into it because we have 50 minutes and we want to make sure that you get everything you came for this from this session. So let's talk about resilience and leadership. What skills have you leaned on most when facing challenges in your careers? We're going to just start right with you.
Oh, okay. So, hello everybody, I'm Veronica Antolano. I'm here from Amazon, a general manager. Thinking about resilience, I would actually go back to, I'm originally from Venezuela. And if you don't know the situation there, it's quite difficult and it's quite complicated. But something that is innate to, I think, our culture is optimism. And it's looking ahead at the long term, knowing that all of the efforts that you put into your every single day, it's going to pay off in that long term. So I think it's been critical for me in my entire experience, both leaving my home country and I've worked with Amazon globally, has definitely been that focus on the long term and looking about it with an air of optimism.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else want to answer that question? What skills have you leaned on most when facing challenges?
I would also say, well, first, I'm AJ. I'm the CEO and Executive Director at NJBIA. And I would say, that pesky little feeling called intuition. So you want to lean into that and just really understand what's happening, what are the challenges, and dig a little bit deeper. So I would say that that's important when you're working through challenges so that you're neutral and that you have, the judgment associated and you dig into your internal compass.
And I think there are often times when we don't believe we have good intuition, right? Or we question our intuition. So I think that was a very important point. You got to lean into it. You do have it. And you probably will hone in on it more when you least expect it. If it smells funny, looks funny, it is funny. As a follow-up, do you think you already have the skills to face challenges? Like, when you face challenges in the C-suite, did you realize, you wake up and think, you know what, I know exactly what to do?
I think you have to be problem solver. I think that as you go on through life, you learn from everything you experience. You learn from the things that you do well, and you learn from the things that you don't do so well. Same thing with people around you. You can look at people around you and say, that's something I want to emulate or take from that situation, or I want to make sure I don't behave like that because I don't think people responded well to that. So I think that we all have to be lifetime learners, and we all have to continue to learn and develop and find ways to meet those challenges. But I also think it's not like you wake up one day and say, I'm here. I think you got to keep on learning and keep on going with everything that you do.
Let's talk about the power of listening. How has listening contributed to your professional growth and advancement?
Hi, Paula Ferreira, Assistant Managing Partner of New Jersey office, Forbes Mazars. Listening, I think, is really key because I think we need to understand our audience. I think being able to stay flexible and adapting to the circumstances around us and understanding who we're speaking to, understanding what their needs are and making sure that we're addressing their needs and listening. One of our core principles is listening to understand. If we understand what our audience is and if we're listening to them, we can be able to provide solutions. And as Lori indicated, be a problem solver because people are looking in leaders solving of issues, right? We're not going to bring the problems to rise, but we're going to bring the solutions to the problems at hand.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. What would you say is the one super skill you've developed that has been most essential to your success? I saw you grabbing the mic. Thank you for that one.
Hi, thank you. Kieran Hanzagadioso, CEO of United Way Northern New Jersey, United for Alice. I think this is a really important question, especially if we kind of look back on the last 5 or so years and a lot of the challenges that, my esteemed panel and all of us have really had to lead during and through. And I think one of the things that's really important is this concept of within being a leader of staying calm. And, that sounds so obvious. But how you practice that, and what I've really tried to focus on, is kind of zooming out, really connecting to your core mission, your purpose, your vision for your organization, your company, and really taking a very, very far step back so that you're able to kind of see through a lot of the stressors and challenges and kind of day-to-day details so that you are able to really focus on what are we trying to accomplish at the end of the day, and how can we get there given all the challenges?
Does anyone else want to answer that one? Can you think of your super skill?
I would just echo what was said in terms of staying calm and listening. I think it's so critically important. I don't see it as optional. You need to be tuned into all of your stakeholders at every level because they have different experiences. They may be working with your members or your clients, and they hear things and see things that you would never see being at the executive level. So it's important to be able to get that feedback, and oftentimes at the executive level, we're expected to make decisions, and so it's important to at least hear that shared perspective, and that will help you to decide, because you don't want to make these decisions in a bubble because too many people are impacted.
Yeah, I think it's important, exactly what you said, for people to feel that they've been heard and that they're participating with you. Like, I know we all sit here as members of the C-suite, but people I work with know that I like to work with people. I don't like people to work for me. I hate the term boss. I think that it's really important that people feel that you're approachable and that you're working with them and that you're problem solving, as we said before, but all with an openness and an ability to affect the situation. And that's, I think, one of the best things that you could get across.
Absolutely. So the people who work for me tend to be my boss. They're in the audience and they know who they are. They tell me what to do. But I've created that environment where they feel like they're going to manage me to get the work done that I've assigned them. Unfortunately, they're very good at it. How did you identify and secure mentors on your path to the C-suite? We know that we don't make it to the C-suite on our own. Generally, there is someone rooting for us, encouraging us, and speaking up for us behind those closed doors where the decisions are made who's going to be next in the C-suite. So can you tell me how you identified and secured mentors?
I can kick us off with this one. A little different, let's say, in the standard with my experience. As I mentioned, I worked with Amazon. I started in Europe, and I was in Italy. I had been promoted to be the first general manager of the fulfillment center in Italy. So we have only 8 fulfillment centers for the entire country, and I was chosen to be the first female leader of these. And that was an epic moment. They did news coverage and everything was so shocking. And I was like, this is ridiculous. But there were so many women ready for the role and being passed over. And we did not have a structured mentorship program. I had mentors, but let's say because of the experience that I'd had. But that's when I realized that it was important to, if it doesn't exist, a mentorship program, to create it. So in my new role, I thought it was important for me to make sure that I was bringing people along and thinking that the mentorship is also an opportunity for your mentor to learn from you. And from that perspective, I created a program in the EU. So we had 60 senior leaders, female leaders, all across the main 5 countries in which we operate in the EU, and I created a program. I reached out to the then Vice President of Operations, and he was on board, and we just created it. Because sometimes if we only think about what we need, we will only get so far. But if we think as well of the value that we can give to those more senior leaders and help them understand and how to become better mentors, we can do that better. That was 4 years ago, and the program is still ongoing. And I'm happy to say, right now there's 2 female general managers in Italy after I even left. So the female representation among that group has grown. I'm super proud of them.
And certainly your program probably helped in that. And it's great when your company or organization has a formalized program, but more often than not, your organization may not. If any of the other leaders here on this panel can talk about the informal way you identified and secured a mentor or 2 within your organizations.
I could speak to that for a little bit. We have a leadership program at Forbes Mazars, but I think accountability is really the key concept, right? I identified my mentor when I was young by somebody who was holding me accountable to certain standards and communicating with them of what I wanted to achieve. I think communicating with your teams, making sure that you're managing the expectations on the onset of where they want, and understanding that there's no one-size-fits-all, that everybody's path is slightly different. When you open that dialogue and you hold the team members accountable, I think it makes it easier to mentor because you're able to dialogue with them on where they want to go, and you're able to be able to speak freely about that path and that their journey might be slightly different than what your expectations would be.
That's great. I'm wondering the flip to that, right? What do you look for when you're deciding whom to mentor for yourself?
I can take that. So I will say that, if you do not have a formal mentoring program, don't be discouraged. There are so many rising stars here today. Kudos to, the 40 under 40, just so many young professionals out here who are talented. So I would say it's a two-way street. As a professional, you can, seek a mentor. You don't have to wait for someone to come up and offer mentorship. And what that involves is accountability, for sure, and showing up, and then developing a strong enough relationship where you can, look to that person and get feedback along the way. And mentorship is really a dual relationship, so the mentee will get something out of it as well. And I think it's the reward of knowing that the mentors will get something out of it, knowing that the mentees are showing up, ready to be accountable, and that's what really allows the relationship to grow.
I think it's also really important to understand what the things are that are important in choosing who it is that you want to mentor. I think that anybody can learn a skill or a specific expertise, but for a person to show up with a great attitude, wanting to learn and wanting to develop and wanting to progress, that to me is the greatest trait in looking for somebody to mentor. You can find people who have a skill set for a role that you want to fill or for a path that you want them to go on, but they have to want to be on that path. They have to come and they have to bring it, and they have to really have the energy and the desire to invest in themselves in order for us to invest in them. So I think that's an important thing to understand.
Absolutely. I was looking for one of you ladies to have like a strange story about your informal mentorship. When I worked at the Department of Labor, I chose my boss's boss as my mentor. He did not know that I had chosen him. But I often worked late, not to say anyone needs to, I just did. And he would meet with my boss once a week, I think. And my boss did not want me speaking with him unless she was present. How many of you have bosses like that? Don't raise your hand. She might be in this room, or he might be in this room. I literally stood outside my office door waiting for him to exit my boss's door, waiting for her to step back in, and I literally did this. Psst, psst. Turned around like, where am I? What is going on? And I was like, come here, come here. And that is how we started a relationship. I've been working with him ever since. That probably was in 2012. So while it's good to be selected by a wonderful leader who can give you what you need, the advice, the encouragement, the support, sometimes you have to pick your mentor. Just keep that in mind. Also, something I think you said, you can learn so much from a mentor, but sometimes you can learn how not to be a leader or what not to do when you're a leader, as well as what to do when you are a leader. Just remember that and chew on that. I have definitely had a leader or two from whom I've learned what not to do, and it's just as important. Okay, let's move on. How have you adjusted your leadership style to keep pace with an ever-changing business environment?
I can take that. I think it's something that, again, has really heightened and really been at the forefront, especially the last 5 or so years, in particular in the nonprofit sector and the things that we think about every day. But I know every sector and all of our partners. And I think it really goes back to the importance of listening and being open to listening to stakeholders from all different perspectives and all different partners. I think, we come up through our work typically very siloed in our industry, in our sector. And I think the most important thing that we've learned is the interdependencies that exist and how the integration between our economy and our community. And we see that for Alice and the families that we know are in poverty and struggling every day.
Can you define Alice? Because
Sure.
there might be some people.
I would love to. ALICE stands for Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed. And it's the folks that earn above the federal poverty level, but often are working and struggling to make ends meet and not eligible for services.
Hi, Donnie.
So that's a very important population, and it's large.
It is. In New Jersey, we estimate 39% of households are either ALICE and in poverty. And so getting back to your question as a leader and why it's important to think about folks and stakeholders, other groups that work with us and other partners who, may or may not be kind of in our typical business site, that now more than ever we need to think non-traditional. And I think NJBIA is an incredible example of that, and Michelle and her whole team. They're constantly pushing the needle to think about who else should we bring to the table, what other voices need to be represented. And as women, we tend to think inclusively, and so I think we have kind of a natural, innate superpower around that.
I love that, yes.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to talk
I was
about?
just going to say that as women, maybe more so than men, or even if not, you have to multitask. You have to be able to encounter a lot of different things at the same time. And I think change is actually constant. I think it's something that we have to live with. It's something we have to know how to react to. And sometimes we have to know how to anticipate it, even create it. So I think if you're not afraid of it, if you think about it in terms of it being a good thing, which I do think it is. I think change is a good thing. You might not always like what the change is, but if you're participating in creating that change, then that's also a positive thing.
I will add just one more thing related to that. You know, as we talk about change, we have strategic meetings, we talk about what's happening externally, internally within the organization. We're very busy, but I do think it's an important time as well to set aside time to self-reflect. So, you know, just ask yourself the questions, did this go in the right direction? Is there anything that I need to do to change it? Because we are drivers of change in our organization. And so whether you're prepared for it or not, you have to get prepared for it because it's on the way, you know, regardless of if it's internal or something coming to you externally.
Connecting the dots with all those too, and we're changing one of the key attributes of a leader is the flexibility and adaptability, right? The ability to recognize a change and kind of switch our path along the way. It's okay to modify what our objectives are. It's okay to modify our path to get there because the world is ever evolving and ever changing. And usually change drives results, right? And that's what we're all focused on. As leaders, we're driving results. So following that and making sure we stay adaptable to the circumstances at hand, I think that's an attribute of a good leader.
And acknowledging that you get better and better at being flexible, the more change you have to deal with. So yes, you might start off hating it. I hate change.
We all hate change.
But you get better and better. And to your point, it's inevitable, right?
I think something that Kelly said earlier about what you can control and what you can't control. You can't always control what happens to you. You can only control how you react to it.
Yeah.
So that's something that you have to keep in mind as well.
Absolutely. So I bet there are individuals in this room interested to know, do your organizations have succession plans? How do you nurture future leaders within your organizations? And are you involved in those that planning?
So I'll start, I guess. We do have an emerging leaders program that we take people into at all different levels and help them on their journey to becoming partners and leaders in the firm. We also oftentimes approach things thinking about our own succession. And I know that sounds funny, but I think each of us has to really think what our succession plan is. I think that we have done that across the board from the beginning of our organization on, and it's helped us to become stronger. So I think some people are threatened by that, and hopefully, I'm sure none of the people here, like when you really get to that point that you realize nobody's irreplaceable. And if you're not thinking about your own succession, then you're not doing what's best for your organization.
I think you're touching on something that's really interesting, which sometimes we tend to think that once we finish a project or once we, move to a different team, maybe if something starts to go wrong, we're like, haha, they needed me, right? And that's completely wrong. That's the opposite of what we need to be thinking when we're thinking about our organization and our teams. We need to your point, plan for the person that will be there after us so that we see it succeed. In Amazon, of course, is huge. So the way that I look at my teams and our succession planning is looking at the individual first and seeing where they can contribute the best. Is it on my team? Is it on a different team? Where can they grow? And that's not necessarily linear, and that's not necessarily perhaps something that they would expect immediately, but it's something that we need to invest in partnering with them and developing them so they have a path forward and understanding that there are going to be so many different experiences that they're going to face and they're going to need. But at the end of the day, we need to think of the individuals in our organization and how to make them grow, how to make them better, and how to make sure that our space is better after we're gone.
Yeah, you're 1,000% right. One of the greatest gifts of being in the C-suite is being able to create opportunities for other people. Yeah. So you have to think about it that way. It's not just about your own success, it's about the success of the company and the success of the people that you're surrounding yourself with. Creating those opportunities is one of my greatest pleasures, honestly.
So you've hit on this when you talked about mentorship and how you identify someone ready for to be mentored by you. But what qualities signal to you that someone is ready for more leadership responsibility? You talked about accountability and other qualities, but what qualities are you looking for, or do you think identify people like, ooh, that person's ready for leadership responsibility?
I'll start. I think the ability to deal with change, right? The quality of the person being able to face the challenges and bring solutions to the table. When someone comes to you with a problem and asking you for solve it versus somebody who comes to you with, I have an idea how to fix something. I think that is a quality that, I think everybody here has said it. We are stronger by building the teams around us, right? The stronger the team is, the stronger our organizations, each of our organizations is. So when you have a teammate who's bringing solutions to the table, I think that makes a difference.
I would also add, as it relates to succession planning, it's really never too early to start having the conversation. I think it's part of our responsibility as executives to have the open conversation about succession. For me, as an example, I represent the voices of so many members. So we have over 13,000 members across the state. But I can, talk to individuals, our young professionals, our emerging leaders, understand where they would like to go, how we as an organization can support the future, the profession of accounting, right? From an internal perspective, I think it's really about aligning your mission and vision, or whatever your focus is for your firm, your company, and then identifying the talent, that's in your pool, and just have open conversations. If you see that they're asking the right questions, bringing solutions, making sure that they want to be a part of the team and be accountable to the next level and the next level. I think that that's also very rewarding, and I enjoy that process and helping people grow.
Right. It really resonates with me, your comments about whether an individual brings a problem to you and is looking for the solution or brings the solution. I know that when a staff person comes to me and says, I messed up, this is what happened, this is the solution to make sure we safeguard against this happening again, so I'd like to put this in place. I will never remember that problem. And when thinking about promoting someone, that it never comes in my mind because they took responsibility, but more importantly, created a new process that improved the organization. So that's a big one. That is a huge one. So I'm gonna ask you a loaded question. Are you ready? How have you maintained balance on your journey to and within the C-suite? And I'm talking about work-life balance.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to know.
Right. I can jump in. This is a topic that comes up from time to time, and I think I have a bit of an unusual perspective on the concept of balance and women C-suite leaders. I think that balance is a bit of a misnomer. When you are in these leadership roles, your priority is your organization, and you are ultimately responsible. And so I think, as I think of myself, I have 2 children. They're 24, 25. I've worked their whole, upbringing. But I really chose my roles based on my commitment and my belief in the kind of mother I wanted to be. and the arrangement and the discussions with my husband. And so I think that we have to be very aware that we can't do it all at the same time. And so I think that's a really big message. I think a lot of women coming up, emerging leaders, a lot of us, there is a misnomer, that we can get up at 4, work out, get the kids up, get everybody dressed, out to school, drop daycare, get to school, somehow get to work, crush it for 6 or 7 hours, lead a team, raise money, drive initiatives, do a public event, and then get to school at 3 o'clock for pickup, and then run everybody through the afternoon activities, dinner, homework, bed, all of it. It's not realistic. And I think we try to do it, and we can't do it. And I think when the sooner we start normalizing that we can have it all, just maybe not at the same time, then the better we will feel. Our companies will have a different set of expectations about contribution and value. And I do think that at the end of the day, our businesses and our economy and our communities ultimately will be better for it.
Thank you for being honest.
Yeah.
I remember the first time that I interviewed somebody. It was probably, 15 years ago. And it was an intern at a local school. And they asked me, how's your work-life balance? How do you maintain a work-life balance? And I just started to laugh. I laughed out loud because I had never heard the term before, and I thought that certainly wasn't something I thought about when I was interviewing or being interviewed. I think somebody told me a long time ago that something that resonated with me and that I think about all the time, that you're always trying to keep all the balls in the air, and you can't keep them all in the air. You just have to prioritize them and hope that the one that drops is the rubber ball and not the crystal ball. So I think that, if you kind of keep that in mind and understand that you're trying to keep a lot of things going at once and prioritize the ones that you make sure don't drop, that's probably the best thing that you can do.
And I would also add that it's not fair to compare, right? Everybody around you is going to have a different journey, and they're going to be able to balance a ball differently than you are, right? They're going to do things a little bit differently, but your journey is your own. Right? As long as you're focusing on what you're focusing on at that time, I had 3 children, and I always said I'm never going to miss a game, right? So when it was time for 4 o'clock, I would leave, I would go to a game, I would log back on. That was what I chose to do. It's not what necessarily everybody chose to do, but you prioritize what's important at that moment and focus 100% on that. Give your all to that at that time, and then you focus on the next thing. But you don't need to do it all, and you don't need to compare yourself to the people around you because your journey is your own.
It is not one size fits all.
I would also add, don't forget to hit the pause button sometimes. We need to reset. We need to take a little time back. I know for myself, it's hard for me to imagine just 2 weeks out of the office, but I figured out a process where I can check email for a certain period of time, let people know that I'll be on, when I'll be off, whatever works for you. And so it's just important to find those opportunities to pause. That may be just taking a short walk, whatever you need to do to refresh, because we're only as good as our ideas, being innovative, leading teams. We have to have the energy to do that. And so that's what I would say.
I would just add a tiny little thing, but I don't know how many folks in this room, how many of you were raised by a parent who you were seeing, just working their butts off and showing that value of work and demonstrating to you what that meant to be self-fulfilled. And sometimes we are very hard on ourselves of, I need to do all of these things, and we don't realize that we're also teaching our children, and they will be better than us. Maybe we don't have it all figured out. Maybe they will. They have time. So it's thinking about what lessons we're giving them and how we're showing them and giving them love throughout. I remember seeing like clips of my mom's achievements in the newspaper and things like that. And how do you bring them in? How do you bring in your inner circle? And it might not be a family, it might be your friends, so that they can be along for the ride and they can see what you're building and you will positively influence them too.
All of your comments suggest that no one is perfect. So there's not one professional out there doing it all. And that's important. And you have to maybe utilize your village, right? My children, I have 2 children, have very fond memories of Dunkin' Donuts breakfast on the way to school. I couldn't do it all. And just 2 days ago, driving in a part of town in South Jersey, yes, I live in South Jersey. All right. My daughter says to me, she just turned 17, she said, wow, I haven't been around these parts in a while. I remember Miss Yvette used to take us to Dunkin' Donuts and to Wegmans to get sushi after she would pick us up to school. And I literally said, when did Miss Yvette pick you up from school? My daughter said there was a whole period in her 4th grade year. So you got to utilize your village. You got to utilize your village. Just a few more questions. Thinking about AI and the future of leadership, in what ways would you say AI is reshaping executive leadership, and how are you preparing for this shift?
I would say that it's important that all executives, if you haven't already started to think about AI, it's here, it's not going away. So you need to think about it in terms of your organizational mission and vision. How can you leverage the technology to help accelerate your mission, your organization? So first you will need to do some analysis in terms of the technology and potential case use opportunities around AI, but I would say at least start to begin the process. Don't wait on it, and don't be too quick to implement a particular solution until you've actually gone through the steps to pilot and to bring people on, talking to your various team members as well as external stakeholders who can help you with the process.
My favorite button is make it better. So we have software that we can write something in and you just click on the button, make it better. It's a great tool. It can make all of us better if we can just click on a button that says make it better.
You know, I work in workforce development, and there are a lot of people in my sector who espouse that AI is going to replace all of us and take our jobs. That is not true. The people who better utilize AI will be the ones who take our job. Our goal should be to learn how to properly and most efficiently use it.
I think it's like when the Industrial Revolution came along, right? People were afraid that machines were going to take our jobs. Machines made our jobs easier. And we've been talking a lot about change, and it can be scary. We've talked about how scary it can be. How can we stay ahead of it? I think, especially with AI, we need to be very curious about what that new world looks like, and if the role doesn't exist yet, we will forge it. So how can we envision ourselves? How can we be at the forefront of that change? We're in Amazon, we're using AI all over the place. It's very exciting. And it's all about trial and error. And we can only do that if we're curious about the change that's coming. So yes, definitely facing it with a hint of playful curiosity.
Playful curiosity, I like that. Do we want to go to Q&A, or can I ask one more question? One more question. When you think about your leadership legacy, what do you hope it will be?
I will start. I think for me, as long as I know that I'm creating positive impact, that's what I want my legacy to be. I want to accelerate the mission of my organization, and I want to accelerate people in the process.
Yeah. I think if I can inspire anybody or many people, hopefully, to be the best that they can be, then that would be my legacy.
I think mine too. I always say I want to leave a room better than when I found it. So leaving my team stronger than when I entered it, leaving my organization stronger, leaving my family stronger and better. That's what I want to leave behind.
I think for me, I want to be known as a leader that really made decisions with both my head and my heart. And that, I was very data-informed, thoughtful, analytical, but also really remember every day why we do what we do and why I show up every day. And so balancing those two.
For me, it's the same. It's about teaching people or helping them find their purpose. Again, in Amazon, we ship boxes, right?
Very important boxes.
Very important boxes. On time. But it's very easy for our workers, for our leaders to feel like their work maybe doesn't matter as much. And creating that sense of purpose in our organizations, I've seen as I've moved from various groups, I feel like I've managed to do that, building that culture, building that leadership or that sense of leadership towards something that creates purpose. We have such a big impact in our communities, so it's about remembering that as we're doing these more routine tasks. So that's what I want to be remembered for.
Awesome. Q&A? Do any of you all have questions? This is your opportunity to ask these wonderful leaders. I see a hand in the back center.
Right here.
Oh, okay. And one over here.
Hi there. Oh. Is this working? Okay, yes. Hi. Thank you so much for being part of this panel. Very inspiring and interesting. My question is about mentorship again. What would you say is a good cadence when you identify a mentor and want to talk to them, keeping in mind that they have very busy schedules and such? Would that be like a once a month, once a quarter? What's your suggestion?
I think the most important thing is setting what that expectation is so that you could say from the onset and kind of evaluate the amount of time that the person has and what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So I don't know that there's a one-size-fits-all for that either. I would think that you want to have a plan, though, and so that you can meet each other's expectations in terms of when you're going to meet, what you're trying to accomplish, what the goal is, and what the path is. I don't know if other people have a time frame.
Agreed.
Hi, June Smith, YWCA, and my work is mostly workforce development. Excellent panel. What I do want to ask is, how are you dealing, as we talk about change and we talk about AI, how are you dealing with intersectionality and neurodivergent populations and policies?
Does anyone want to jump on that? I know from my organization, the New Jersey Council of County Colleges and the New Jersey Community College Consortium for Workforce and Economic Development, way too long, we are definitely encouraging and supporting our community colleges throughout the state with programs that support individuals that may be neurodivergent, right? As well as, so supporting those students and adult learners, but also encouraging employers to consider that population for employment and supporting our colleges as they are out talking to employers.
Yeah, from Amazon's perspective, I can't say from a technology perspective what we might be doing, but certainly from a leadership perspective, how we prepare our leaders to better manage, better create opportunities for these individuals in our organization. That's something that we do double down on significantly.
Any other questions?
Hi, I'm Daniela Reiner with Ironbound Coaching. I'm over on this side, sorry. We tend to be our own worst critics, and I work with women every day and helping them change their mindset and kind of find their power And I was curious if in your journey there is a kind of deep core belief that you held onto that kept you moving forward, that kept you kind of leaning into the change and the hardships.
Something I tell my boss every once in a while, and I don't wear my religion on my sleeve. In fact, I've been accused of cursing and reciting scripture in the same sentence. And I was the first lady of a Black Baptist church for 16 years, so that was like that was kind of frowned upon. But every once in a while, as my boss and I are discussing important and challenging topics, I say to him, well, because I have very strong faith in God, I believe ultimately that we will survive this challenge and that we will grow and be better. So I think that I hold close my religion, my faith in God, and believe that what needs to happen, what should happen, will, and that maybe the challenge is God preparing us for the next great thing.
So I don't know if it's a core belief or not, but I think your mindset has everything to do with how you perform and what the outcome is. So I think that people who think they can't. I think people who think they can. Maybe that makes us take on too many things, because maybe sometimes you should say I can't, but not necessarily from an ability standpoint, but from a workload standpoint. I think that how you approach things and how you make those decisions is kind of what I would say is at my core. I think that if even you see it with your kids, if somebody is, well, I don't want to take her there because she'll be scared of that, then she'll be scared of that. Mm-hmm. If you think that they'll be able to handle it and it'll be good, then, and that's what you speak about and that's how they approach it, then they can. And I think it's the same for all of us. So I don't know if that's exactly a core belief, but I think it's a mindset that you really do need to have.
And I would echo that, because I always say, we can do anything we set our minds to. Right? Mm-hmm. We're going to keep pushing forward. I was speaking to somebody late last night, and I said, we're always driving ourselves to be better, right? We're the best version of ourselves. We never think we got there. We're always kind of going to the next thing. So this challenge or this whatever's coming our way that may be difficult, it's because it's making us a better human, a better person, somebody who's accomplishing more, whatever that may be. It might not be what we thought it was going to be, but that's okay. It's accepting what it is and making the best out of that situation rather than focusing on the trouble that it was to get there.
I was just going to add, because I think it's a fantastic question, because we've all had those, 2 a.m., wide awake, questioning, what am I doing? Can I do this? Am I the right person? What are we really driving? And I think it goes back to that mentoring conversation we've been having throughout, and really leaning on what I think about are kind of peer mentors, right? I have a number of colleagues I've known for 25, 30 years in this space, and I tend to put a text out to them saying, I need a call, I need a talk, I need to run this by you, I'm having some doubt, I'm having concern. And those are relationships that are truly, truly special and irreplaceable, and they can take you from, having a moment of doubt and worry to a place of confidence and support and energy in a 10-minute conversation because of the trust. So I think the peer mentors and peer support is critical in those moments of fear and doubt, because we all have them.
Absolutely. I will just share a quick story. One of my mentors, she was a senior healthcare executive, and I asked her how she got to the top. I was very curious, and we developed a wonderful mentorship relationship that just led to a great friendship. And she said to me, you're the only one who knows that you're having these negative thoughts unless you share them. So change your mindset and tell that pesky little voice to shut up. I'm in charge, and this is what I'm going to do. So we have control.
So just when you think it can't get any better, it always does. It's absolutely incredible to me that just when you think it can't get any better, it always does. These are amazing leaders who are doing amazing things here in our great state of New Jersey. Round of applause, please. Thank you, ladies. You can stay seated for a minute. I have just a couple comments before I send you off. First of all, the hugest mea culpa to my board chair. Wow. You know, I'm here 11 years, and I hope tomorrow it's 11 years in a few days when I start a panel and my board chair isn't in the room to get her up in her chair. Lori, I so apologize having you run across the room there. Thank you so much for your flexibility, right? You know, the messages have been absolutely amazing. And for those of you who are earlier on in your career, I really want to encourage you to listen to the messages being delivered from those of us who are a little further along in our career, because we've had the life experiences. Some of them have been the bumps in the road, some of them have been the opportunities, and we either struggle through them or they didn't kill us and here we are to stand today. And there is something about, you know, life and time on this planet that builds you as a leader too. So don't be so hard on yourself early on, realizing you might just not have had some of those opportunities, experiences, or challenges present to you yet, but boy, oh boy, can you learn from the experience of others and keep looking for those experiences. They will help to inform you on your way. I want to welcome board member Dave Vitale, who joined us after our intros this morning from Amazon. Thank you very much, Dave. This leads me once again to, we heard a lot about the role of male role models. And while we're predominantly a room of women today, we do have men in the room today who are here supporting their female colleagues, either, you know, across the board as a colleague or in a reporting structure. We heard examples of that this morning. One of my own mentors was, you know, a male lawyer when I was young. And the importance of that diversity of thought leadership to be formed around the table, so important to have those different voices. And Kieran, I always love stepping back. As a business association, you would think the only people we would have around our board table are people who represent, you know, the pure interest of the business owner. Wrong. These business owners are job creators, and if we don't understand what the workforce needs on any given point in time, we can't be good job creators, and that's why it's important that we have voices like Alice around our board table, and that's why the importance of diversity and thought leadership. So when you build either your own personal board, right, to help to inform you, make sure you're not just surrounding yourself with people who sound like you, look like you, like the same things that you like. Make sure that they reflect things that can challenge you, broaden your experience, and bring some things to you that you might not otherwise see just because of who you are. And then just this very last thing, because it goes all the way back to Girl Scouts, right? Just always leave it better than we found it. And we learned that in Girl Scouts. We learned that in Girl Scouts. And so here you go, full circle.